Yes, very much so. There was all that.
No, start. I think we can start. Yeah. Okay, welcome to all of you. We needed some water before we could start working on this workshop, because it's all about water, of course. We are very welcome that you're here, and welcome to join our seminar on a climate-proof Groningen, designing on a climate-proof Groningen. Welcome to you, audience, live here at the Rabo Studio in Forum, but also a very welcome to all our online guests who will join us by our live stream all over the world, we hope. And in this seminar, Designing a Climate-Proof Groningen, we will talk with 3 designers. 2 of them are here at this table, and one of them will talk to us by video, by a Zoom link, and with a professor about climate adaptation. And the topics we will talk about is how can we deal with climate adaptation in cities, especially in cities which are very dense, above the ground and under the ground. How do we deal with climate adaptation? How do we find enough solutions to deal with heat stress, to solve problems like floodings, and to also make the city an attractive city? What spatial measures are needed to make the city cooler and to limit flooding? And, of course, when we are working on climate adaptation, how can we also increase the attractiveness of public space? These are topics we will talk about with my 4 guests. My name is Tamara Ekamper. I work for the municipality of Groningen, and I mainly focus on climate adaptation, on greening up our municipality, and on design. I was the project leader of the exposition Sponsland, which you can see on the Grote Markt. Maybe after this seminar you can have a look over there. And 2 of the guests over here also contributed to that exposition. And today I will be your host. Before I'm going to introduce my guests, I have some practical things to say. We will have 4 talks in a row, so 4 presentations following each other. And then please keep your questions or your remarks until the end, because after these 4 presentations, we will have a talk with you in the audience. There's also a possibility to join us live stream, and there's also a chat function in the live stream app. So if you have questions, you can click them. I have my tablet over here, so if there are any questions, I can have a look and well, hope one of you can answer the questions. Maybe some other remark is, I don't know, if you have your mobile phone with you, can you turn it off or put it on mute so it won't disturb the seminar? Let me introduce to you my first guest. He works as a professor on spatial transformations at the Hanze University of Applied Sciences, and he focuses on water. He knows everything about water and about floodings in urban areas. He travels around the world to explore solutions to our changing climates and looking to other cities how they deal with floods, with droughts, and with heat stress. He organized over 25 climate cafes all over the world, in Asia, in Africa, Southern America, and in Europe. And when he's not outside, abroad, somewhere else in the world, you can even find him in Groningen sometimes. Together with his students, he loves to measure the effectiveness of wadis, or he measures heat stress in the city of Groningen. He is our inspiring local hero on climate adaptation, and you will see much more of him during this Let's Grow Festival, because I think you will be here the whole weekend to learn us everything about climate adaptation. But today you are here. When you say water, when you say cities, and when you say climate adaptation, you say Floris Boogaert. Welcome to have you here.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, that's great. No pressure.
No pressure. Not at all. Yeah. I'll give the floor to you.
All right, perfect. So we'll change places. Good. All right. Well, that's a very nice introduction, of course. I will do a very short introduction before we have the next speakers with solutions, just setting the scene. So, do we have the slides up, or maybe? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So just setting the scene, well, a better introduction than this I cannot have. I also work at the Global Center based here in Groningen and also Deltares. Of course, my main topic is water. As you can see, if the dikes would break, I would be in a lot of trouble with my work. Just to give you a very quick setting the scene, challenges, solutions, and a short strategy, of course. First, analyze the area of Groningen as we do internationally, and then come forming an ambition, and I hope we really get to action. And that's where we are here today, to see some solutions that we can find. And of course, this is quite actual. This is really new news. We have Glasgow, we have new reports of the IPCC, of course. It's quite tragic here in the Netherlands. Also, the KNMI had disturbing news about the sea level rise that will be even more that we expect. And of course, in the region of Groningen, which you can see now, these effects will be, it's just in the news of the KNMI, but it will be having a large effect. So I think what we're talking now on Sponsland is very, very actual. It's about flooding, it's about drought, it's about heat stress, as Tamara already said, but it's also changing the temperatures. It's the water quality, the air quality, the livability of cities, urbanization. We have more people in the Netherlands, but also internationally, of course. So, and that's a very big challenge for all of us in the near future. So, because cities were not that smart urban planners. Sometimes it's green or gray, as you can see in these pictures. And our challenge is to more merge gray infrastructure with green infrastructure to fight heat stress, for example, which is very local, the measures that we would take. And is it getting even better? Do we feel the same? No, there's more urbanization, there's more pavement, there's less water infiltrating, so groundwaters will not minimize. We have more pavement, so more water will flood to lower areas in our cities. We have more intensive rainfall, so we will have more floodings in the urban area. So that's quite bad news, of course. And if you see the news, the pictures that you see here, stormwater events or heat stress, it has effect on so many things in the city. It's a very holistic approach that we would see. And drought as well, it's after 2018 in the Netherlands, but all Europe, we had intensive damage on infrastructure, on our agriculture, and also safety. The last dike that broke in the Netherlands was because of drought and not because of too much water, for example. So what is our task? Well, green has a very difficult time in cities, as you can see in these pictures. It seems like we're sealing the cities. No water can not infiltrate anymore. We need spons cities, spons land, as we're talking about today. And I think these artists gave setting the scene very nice. Let's open up our cities. Let's look for green and use that as bioswales or rain gardens to store water, infiltrate water, and also zip up the pavement. Let's make permeable pavement and water squares where water has room in the cities. So, and of course the strategy, as I mentioned, it's about analyzing our cities as all the researchers did in Sponsland, and then come to an ambition. And ambition is, of course, we are limited by public space in the urban dense area. We're limited by budget. We have to deal with many stakeholders in the urban area, so that makes it quite difficult. And the action, of course. And this is why we need a holistic approach. It's multidisciplinary. There's so many factors that we should have. It's bottom up, it's top down, it's about legislation, it's social science, it's natural science, it's quite complex. So I applaud, of course, the solutions that are being taken. And first, we set the scene in analyzing our areas. And mostly we do that with models, as you can see here. And two models are from Groningen. We have models around the world, of course, so it's an international approach. And this is Groningen, a flood map of Groningen. Some of the regions you might recognize, Gedempte Zuiderdiep. The name in Dutch means that it used to be a canal, and we made that into a road because we need more traffic, and it might not have been the best solution we had in the eyes of climate change. And of course, Winschoten-Kade, you see some floodings as well. But it's not only about flooding, we also have the other side, heat stress, and we also have drought, and there's so many things in the city, so it's a multidisciplinary task task. We have to make all the models together to come to solutions that will be a solution for everything. And we have to adapt as well and accept that there will be more intensive rainfalls and more longer drought periods and more heat stress in the urban area. And that's one. And we have to embrace all the solutions. Some solutions internationally around the world, which are quite inspiring, I would say. Some Dutch solutions as well, of course, that could be about green roofs, rain gardens, bioswales, permeable pavement, I mentioned them, of course. And it's quite inspiring to see and to share that knowledge with each other. The international ones, the local ones. And there are a lot of climate adaptation platforms where you can find these solutions. And one of them is actually hosted in Groningen. It's one of the biggest nature-based solution database in the world, actually. It has more than 8,000 solutions already. In Groningen, there are more than 250 points that you can visit. It's open source, and it ticks a lot of boxes that you can see here on EU documents. And one of my hobbies is to go out in cities and see those solutions and see in which urban characteristics we can find. Because the center of Groningen is very different than Paddepoel or Selwerd or other regions, of course. So we have to fit the solutions to a certain region. And I think in Sponsland, that's what it's all about. So that's just a database that you can use, and I really hope that you share your solutions as well on this database so we can make the world a happier place, so to say. And why Groningen? Well, we did a lot of analyzing already. What are the major solutions here? It's about green roofs and bioswales has been reported in these documents, and I think it's a very interesting area to work. So as Tamara says, I'm more than welcome and happy to be here, of course. But I also use that knowledge of Groningen to make it even bigger and to compare it to Copenhagen, which has disastrous flood in 2011, 150 millimeters in 2 hours. We never had that. Well, what's going to happen if Groningen has that? But also Johannesburg facing difficult droughts that will be faced in the future. So in these, we can compare the cities, but we have to recognize that it's a local challenge with local stakeholders, local culture, local solutions. So we have to face it, but the strategy is the same. It's also always analyze, form an ambition, and then go to action. So that's the final words. I hope I just showed some tools. I'm very excited to hear all the solutions after this, and hope we can share that knowledge and on an international level. So thank you a lot. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Floris. I think you very well addressed all the problems cities have to deal with during climate adaptation. You have been around looking all for solutions all over the world, but we also have some Groningen solutions, and I would love to present them to you with the three presentations we will have by the landscape architects sitting here at the table. The first one, I would love to introduce Alexander Herbout. Alexander, I found out that we have the same age. Oh. We were both born in 1978, and we both studied landscape architecture in Wageningen. But where I started to work for a municipality, Alexander had the guts to found his own bureau on landscape architecture. It's called OTO, and it's located in Rotterdam. After his graduation, your graduation in 2006, Alexander won in 2007 the Agriprix Internationaal. And in 2015, you won the Young Professional Award IFLA. And we have asked Alexander here in Groningen to help us with one of the most urgent heat islands the city has to deal with, a Damsterplein, the Damster Square. It's not only a heat island, it's also a location that deals with floodings during heavy rainfall. And based on his design, we are now working on the realization of this project, Damster Square. And this is partly funded by the LIFE program on climate adaptation. So we are very pleased with that support. It's a difficult project. There's a lot of traffic surrounding the square, and the square is actually the roof of a parking lot, so there is not a lot of space underneath, so it's difficult to realize trees or do solutions with water, but you have managed some great solutions in Damster Square, and I would love to hear your presentation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you for this nice introduction. I will go to my presentation. Good to be here in this beautiful place in Groningen, and not far away from the Damsterplein, of course, where we're talking about. I think that the sense of urgency, I think Floris already mentioned, is quite clear. And we were being asked to investigate what kind of challenges Damsterplein is facing. So, and we saw also that the municipality was already really taking some action on this. But we were being asked to take a look at Damsterplein, and we see this square located, on the east side of the inner city, of course. Also located in on the interesting point where different areas meet. Also the Eems Canal Zone, where also developments will take place in the coming future. And what you also see, I think, is you could say for a square you would expect a square or more, but it's a peculiar shape. It's quite long and narrow. And also, when you take a look at the current condition, the square is it's a really paved area, and it was intentionally designed as a kind of event space. So it should be really flexible for markets or whatever. And you can also see the boxes for the trees. They can be taken away. That was also originally the idea. But within time, it was not that much markets anymore. What you also can see is that there's a big road along the square, which cuts off the square from the surrounding buildings. And looking from a kind of climate view perspective, you could say that there are some disadvantages from this kind of spaces. There's a lot of pavement which prevents water from infiltrating in the soil, but also accumulates heat, especially when it's, for instance, black, the asphalt road. It's quite big. The trees are not that big, so they cannot provide a lot of shadow. And also the roofs, the surrounding roofs are a lot of pitched roof buildings. They're nice, but they cannot slow down the runoff of the water. So in this terms, maybe it has some problems. I mean, if you take a look at the paved area, it's roughly 90%. Well, if you take a perspective from climate change, they say that 30% green will tackle 2/3 of the biggest problems related to heat and water problems. So we have to take at least 20% more green. That's the assignment. But if you take a look at the square and you would cut it through, of course it's kind of logical. There's no soil beneath, so no trees can grow there actually, only on one side. And like this garage is the roof of the garage cannot have a lot of weight, so this is a big constraint in the design. Well, the shape of the Damster square is kind of related, of course, to the history. So it's one of the blue lines coming in the city, where in the old days ships came with all kind of milk and butter and food, vegetables from the rural areas into the city. But as you can see on the left picture, it was a kind of lively, nice area, area, where the goods were stored. And on the left, you see that the age of the car came in. So we decided in many cities to take out the water and let the car come in. And we were thinking about this, is that you can see that in time, from a kind of pedestrian based nice space. The space, the car came in, it was more a car-oriented space. Then the parking garage came in to put the car down, and we were asking ourselves, what is the next step then for this space? Do we want to go back? This is really an opportunity for the municipality to bring back this kind of quality, like pedestrian space or social space, to bring in more green, more fresh air, space for water. So what we did actually was making a scan, like also Floris mentions, like modeling and what's actually the problem and where. On different themes, as you can see, water, heat stress, for the green, like the quality of space, air quality, and traffic. I won't go into detail of all of them, but because of the climate, you could say that in the old days, the space was really climate adaptive already. There's a lot of open water, which is good for storage of water and also for cooling. There's places to stay and walk and stroll, and big trees which provide shadow, but also a habitat for birds, insects, and also can clean air. So if you look at the water problems, there are some problems, and we also try to identify where the water goes nowadays, so to see where the problems are. And also the question, what kind of ambition do we want to keep the water? Water is a useful resource. It's becoming more valuable. And what do we want? Do we want to collect it and to take it away to the sewage system, or is it more better to reuse it? And yeah, for what purpose then? Up there you can see how many water we should have to store if we want also to keep all the roofs, surrounding roofs. It's kind of volume with it's bigger than the pavilion on the square, but not that big as the building on the square. Just to give a sense of idea how much it is. Talking about the coolest square in town, literally nowadays the square is the hottest one. And if you take a look into more detail, you can see that during summertime, the square is not only hot when you want to be there, of course, but also you can see that it continues in time, of course. This is the urban heat effect. So also during the nights, there's a lot of heat accumulated. So it sends out the heat. So we take a look more in detail, like what kind of pieces are touched by the sunlight and where do we have to improve it. But also one important aspect of a square, of course, is like how it can function, how people can find their place as a social space or interact. So one of the things here is the traffic around, so it cuts off from the buildings. How can you cope with this? And what kind of examples do we have of like more international or national ones to greenify squares, to make better social spaces, but also maybe to cope with the surrounding traffic? Yeah, and we had to ask, of course, the users, the residents around, so we started the workshops. We proposed some different options and also like some ideas, reference, like what do you want, why? And together with them, we developed these kind of 4 points. One is on the bigger scale, you could say that this historical connection, it's making this square a strategic connector between the inner city and the more rural part outside. So it can be a kind of climate axis. On the other hand, it should be, of course, a nice space to be, climate adaptive. And how to improve the social part. A square should be alive and not that empty. And for ourselves, we said this should be a kind of experience, not only that things are solved, it's a nice square, but that you also can experience what happens and brings things in. The obvious solution, of course, is greenifying. Everybody knows it has a lot of advantages. But how to do this on a square that's really paved, has a parking garage underneath? So we proposed a kind of layered strategy where one of the important things is making a canopy. So in order to prevent heat stress, you have to prevent sun hitting the actual pavement. So the canopy layer is really important. And also for the water, we tick some boxes, things to solve water problems, and we try to integrate them in a kind of design. And one of the most challenging things was how do we make green enough for a tree to survive, because they need at least 1 meter high. And also the construction below. So the green islands will provide space, as you can see on the right side. If you bring in those trees, it has a lot more shadow, so there's a lot more blue, which means it's less of the times hit by the sun. And we try to position the trees on top of the structure below. So there's a kind of grid below, and we try to place the trees there where it's possible. And when we also want to be a square, a place where you can meet, you need some open space for markets. So the sun will hit this space, so we also propose the kind of place where you can experience water, like a fountain or things that can cool down the square on this place. It brings all these kind of benefits, as I mentioned. So for the water and heat stress, also for green, like ecology. And one thing is important is that this square also has to deal with the air quality. It's not that good because it's connected along the ring road. This screen can also play an important role in filtering light. So we did a kind of investigation how these green islands could look like and how this square could be nice during rainfall. And the idea of concept, if we can not let the water infiltrate, which is hard because of the high water levels and the garage, why don't we make it a kind of water battery for the surrounding area? We can store maybe a lot of water, and the trees on this square maybe need this in harsh conditions, so we can reuse it or maybe for other purposes. Yeah, some technical things maybe. And then maybe during the workshop there was this idea, why is this one layer of parking garage was closed off? Because of leakage. Why don't we put the water in the lowest level? But yeah, we find out it's maybe structural, not the best option. So there's different options for that, but at least the idea was landed to reuse and to use the part below for the water, so the dumpster deep is brought back again in another way. Yeah, the squares from 2013 made by a really good office that can do with the craftsmanship, so they did this nice design with pavement, but what to do with all the pavement which is there? So we found out that there's a certain amount which is really dark, a certain amount is really light. It has some sizes, so can we do something with the accumulating of the heat? So we thought about albedo effect, which is that sun reflects more on white areas and less on dark areas. And we thought about this kind of heat map. Could the square react on the sun? So when there's more sun, the square would be lighter, and when there's less sun, the square can be darker. And this makes this kind of spaces along the islands where there's more shadow, it can be more dark, and we can reuse the more light pavement in the middle of the square, and where you can see the shape of the square. So maybe it can be also related to the history of the shape of the old harbor, which was there. Yeah, like I said, like in all weather conditions, it should be a nice square. And one of the things that I think now in the process important is to take a look at this nice vision. In the meantime, the municipality made this vision on mobility. And what are the opportunities to minimize impact of the traffic, or maybe take out one road, for instance, which would make the square much better, because then it's connected with the program along the square. Yeah, so in wet conditions. And then in the end, we said, okay, we have to deal with this condition right now with the roads. And we try to make these green islands to stretch them over the roads, so you have the idea of walking or driving through green islands. And that these green islands are lower, so they can really take off a lot of runoff water from the streets. So they also act as a kind of green thing. And in that case, we try to find out, does it really work, right? It's nice ideas, does it work? So we try to calculate the amount, and this is the physical, like this is not the actual temperature, but how it feels. And then we saw really the drop of temperature by 2.5 degrees, so it feels not that much, but it can be a lot in terms of experience on the square. So that's, I think, the main story.
Oh, perfectly in time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alexander, for presenting your ideas for the Damsterplein. I already mentioned we are working hard now on realizing this, so I think that's very nice that a design and a design manifestation with these ideas can also really work in that way, that we are also going to work on it and going to put the ideas into practice. So I'm very pleased for that. Okay, I would love to introduce to you my third guest. And unfortunately, he will not be able to be here live in Groningen. I know he really wanted to be here. So we are both very sad that it didn't work out this time, but next time, Ido, you are very welcome, and I will show you around Groningen when you are able to come. It's great to have you here online anyways. His name is Ido Avizar. And he is the director of a Paris agency called LIST, an office for architecture that we were brought in contact with Ido and with LIST by our curator, Peter Veenstra. Peter arranged all the bureaus to the city of Groningen. And I must say that the work of LIST really inspired us. And we have really enjoyed, I can't see him anymore, but we have really enjoyed, Ido, your analytic, researching and imagining work that you did in Groningen. LIST developed several strategies to successfully act in an increasingly complex urban context and to realize serious change. So here in Groningen, they made wonderful suggestions how to deal with heat stress, how to deal with water in a very complex and dense urban area. And their idea was really how can we slow down the city. And it's all based on the gedempte Zuiderdiep, a bit farther than the Damster Square. So actually we move a little bit towards the western part of the center and focus on the gedempte Zuiderdiep and het Minervaplein. Ido, if you are able to hear us and to see us, I would like to give the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Tamara, for the very nice introduction. As you said, I'm super sorry and disappointed not to be there today, also for the start of the exhibition. That looks good. Yeah, but let's hope that the gods of technology will work and that I can do the lecture online in a suitable way. Okay, so first, yeah, as you said, we're an office of architecture and urbanism based in Paris. So we are not landscape designers. So actually, we're a little bit of intruders in this process. Also because, let's say, on normal times, we rather deal with the gray than with the green, as Floris said in the beginning. But I guess that one of the reasons that we're there is that we're not hardcore architects, or let's say when we design architecture and city planning, our main aim is really to find interesting relationship between the built and the unbuilt, between the architecture and the landscape all around us. And we try also to do that on all possible scales. But let's now go to Groningen. So in the Sponstad project, there were 9 different offices working on different territories. Our office worked on the inner city. And as said Tamara, on the Zuiderdiep that you see here in black, number 1, which is a very interesting site, of course, because it's the center of the city, but also because it's a former canal that was transformed into a traffic boulevard. Of course, it raises a lot of very complicated questions. We would all like this space to become greener, nicer, more nature-like, but of course, this is very difficult to be achieved. We cannot just take away pavement and asphalt and replace them by trees. We can do it a little bit, but not too much. Also because the city, in the inner city or the city center, is the place in which all the different uses, all the different things are somehow coming together. So what we try to do in this project is, let's say, go beyond, of course, greenwashing, and also go beyond modernism bashing, because also modernism is also our heritage. This is the reason we have hospitals, we have schools, we have access to comfort and a lot of things like that. But of course, modernism was not always very nice to our planet. So we try to deal with that, but also by observing very carefully the environment we work in. So for us, a very important first question was to try to understand the structure of the inner city of Groningen and its specificities. It was very important. So you have the map of the inner city of Groningen on the top left, and then you see other cities that are somehow compared on the same scale. And of course, we see a very important role of water, played by water in the form of the city. Also with these east-west connections, very important as the Zuiderdiep that you have, and the small, very small, narrow streets going from north to south. So when we try to understand the structure, we saw that there were, let's say, 3 different layers in it. The first one was this kind of east-west continuities that you have here, which are very important in the experience of the city and the public space. But then also you have the structure of very small pocket squares that are somehow connected to these main streets, and also creating almost a fourth east-west connection on the north part of the city. And then a last part about the structure is that you have all these big facilities and satellites around the city centers, which are the hospital, but also the train station and the market, and a lot of different services which somehow gravitate around this central island. So our site is, of course, a part of the first system, but you will see later on that the second system of pocket parks is also very interesting for us in connecting at the city center. So when we try to work on the transformation of public space in the inner city of Groningen, quite quickly we were kind of convinced that there was a question about conflicts, and that conflicts in use were very important on small scale, as you can see on the right, but also on large scale of our whole planet as a whole. And of course, the COP26 now is also an example of that. And what is interesting for us is how to deal with these conflicts on all the different scale, and how to, let's say, pass from the design scale to much larger territorial scales. When we started to design, we identified three major conflicts at the city centers, conflicts for space, of course. The first of them was the mobility conflict, because on every morning and every evening, you have a lot of amount of cars, trucks, buses coming to the city center, but also more and more bikes now, because there was a very interesting politics about cars in Groningen now. And so you have a lot of bikes, but also bikes take place. Bikers would like to park their bike just 5 meters from the bakery and don't accept to walk like 50 meters. So of course, all these are kind of creating major conflicts on usage of public space. Another conflict is the overlap of uses. That mean people trying to use public space for their own, let's say, use or comfort, and somehow fighting for different spaces in the public space. And the third and most important conflict for us is the place for water, because of course water needs space to go. It cannot be reduced. Water, there is a quantity which is not reducible, and that needs to be infiltrated or dealt with on an interesting scale. And so, of course, all these three conflicts are somehow acting together, and that they have influences one on another. And of course, we believe that in the coming, let's say, 50 or 100 years, and the transformation of cities, conflict will play a major role. We cannot make them disappear, but we will have to somehow work with these conflicts in order to make interesting and capable projects of transformation. So the most important, we said, conflict was the place for water that needs to be given. Water, of course, is a very ambiguous thing, because it can be, of course, a source of life, joy, and freshness, as you can see on the image on the right, something that everyone enjoys in the public space in the city. But it can also lead to chaos and flooding and catastrophe, as on the left. So how to deal with this kind of ambivalence of water and ambiguity with water? So for us, the idea of this project of Sponge City or Sponsstad is very important. The sponge for us is something that can actually absorb the extreme conditions, hard rain, flooding, heat, and make them, let's say, a little bit softer, a little bit more livable. So it's a kind of decelerator of the brutal phenomena that we will face in the coming future. So if we go now to the site, so Zuiderdiep, this is an image from the 60s when it was a very important road for cars. But what you can see here is that, of course, there are the cars, but there are also the embankments on the side. And you see that there is a place in its width for a lot of different uses. So for us, this is an interesting key for the transformation. This is a more recent image. So you see the importance of traffic today, of our mobility spaces dedicated to mobility, which are for us needs to be rethought. The first design hypothesis when we started to work on the project was that we need to be much more qualitative in the water absorption. So we started with numbers that were the numbers of, let's say, the amount of flooding, the maximum amount of flooding that you have every 10 years. And we try to see how to deal with this quantity on very short terms with 3 different methods. First method is infiltration. So we believe that 40% of this hard rain can be slowly infiltrated. Another object is to be able to retain 40% of that to infiltrate them later on, and then 20% of canalization to the 2 canals on the east and on the west. We believe that these 3 systems can be put together into one very intelligent single system that can lead to a very interesting combination and collaboration between the parallel strategies. So you have a small plan on the bottom that shows how we want to deal with them on the different sequences of the boulevard of the Zuiderdiep. A second hypothesis that we believe that mobility can be much more compact. On the left, you have the current section of the boulevard today with 60% of the surface that is dedicated to traffic. Actually, it's a little bit more because even the trees that you see here are a separation between the main road and the side road. So that means that actually it's more or less a part of the mobility system. We believe that mobility can be reduced to, as you see on the right, to just 30% of the space. Of course, it won't be as fluid as it is today, but we believe it will be much more balanced situation in which you have much more space to do other things. Other things, that means gardens, open squares, infiltration spaces, open space for people to enjoy the city life. And it can, for us, be it can really work as a system. You have here an excerpt of the model that we did in which you can see the mobility side on the right, and then the possibility it leaves on the left of it to create gardens and water retention systems. And then the third hypothesis is that if we don't use the boulevard as a kind of traffic pipe, we believe we can also cut it into climate adaptive sequences. That means that it's no longer just one continuous system. Of course, continuity will exist, but you can also think of that as a kind of discontinuous system in which you have different small gardens or small systems that are somehow working together and dialogue with other small parks in the city centers. So the idea is to have this continuity, so the theme, and then to have the different variations. So we have 4 types of sequences. We have open squares, we have urban forests, of course, small urban forests, but still urban forests. We have water infrastructures, we have swales, and the 4 of them together can compose, we believe, one single urban environment that is very interesting, as you can see on the bottom. So it's not just a boulevard in which the green is something that is there just to be the company of the cars, but really a collection of small gardens working together. This is a part of the model that we present also in the exhibition. It's just 4 different sequences of the boulevard, put one above the other, that show you the potential, I believe, in the transformation of the public space. The acid trees are not trees on acid, of course, but the idea is that they will be, of course, more green than that, but that there will be different types and essences of trees in order to radicalize the differences between the different sequences, that also show that the gardens are not the same garden, but different types of public space altogether. And then the water which is there and which can be absorbed, stocked, or canalized for us, this also needs to be really carefully designed and also be seen in the public space as water artifacts. What we call artifacts are different fountains, canals, benches, water towers, water retention system, pools, etc. Different types of, let's say, architectural elements and furniture that are a part of the design of the city and that people can enjoy and see all days of the week. It might be a bit strange with this climate change urgency to think about aesthetics, but for us, aesthetic is very important. We believe that for people that live in cities, climate change is not just a question of, let's say, avoiding the worst, but it's also a potential for transformation and a better city and a more enjoyable city. So we believe it is very important for us as designers, as architects, to be able to give shape aesthetically to these kind of new systems that are in the city. So we tried here very, let's say, modestly to just design different fountains, canals, elements for stocking waters, water towers, etc., as we really believe as joyful elements of city life that just as we know in other places. So this is just a part of the Zuiderdiep different sequences in which you see the water elements and the water in black here, which create really different sequences that are put all together. And of course, that will end up in this beautiful space that you have already in the city today, just next to the architecture school and the art academy, which is somehow opening to the canal and to the sun on every day. And then maybe one last thing is the Minerva Plain. You have this beautiful art academy that was designed by Piet Bloem, which is a very interesting building, but also a very closed building because it somehow occupies a part of the public space, as you can see in this image, a part of the boulevard. Somehow for us, the problem with this building is that it somehow internalizes the public life and is not very reactive to the public space all around it. So what we did was try to interrogate the fact about how it can create some kind of reciprocity with the public space, can open up, but also can deal a little bit better with its own water tanking facilities, absorption, and to be something that somehow works with the public space. So here you have a part of the design in which you have a new parvis in front of the school, a swale on the side of it, and we try to liberate more space to be able to deal with water and to deal with hard rains and to make a building which is much more as a public building be able to address the surrounding around it. These are just a few images of the model around the art academy and the transformation it creates and how it interacts with the public space all around it. We also worked a little bit on Hansa Plain. I won't show it now, but let's say what was important about it, it's just the square in front of the hospital that today is really all about traffic. And the idea is how to make traffic just one system and not the only system, and how the design of public space can do also with other systems which are related to green, to blue, and to people enjoying public space. And then I would just like to finish with this slide that shows for us some kind of potential on the inner city. We just tried to extrapolate from the Zuiderdiep into kind of total design of the public spaces and how to see how 100 of water elements, fountains, small gardens, water towers, canals, etc., can be a part of the new city design and help to transform the public space of inner city Groningen. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Ido, for your presentation. And it's good for you to know that the model that Ido presented in his presentation is transported from Paris to Groningen and can be seen in the greenhouse at the Grote Markt. So if you have time after the seminar, have a look and you can see the model for life and not only on the screen. Thank you, Ido, for your presentation. I hope you will join us until 12:30, and then maybe there will also be some questions for you later this session. Then I would love to introduce to you my last guest and my fourth guest, also coming from an agency from Paris, but originally coming from Italy, I understood. I'm very pleased to meet you here live in Groningen, Tommaso Raimondi. Because it's the first time you're actually here in Groningen. Maybe it's good for you to know that when we started the design manifestation Sponsland, it was before Corona. So we invited people from Paris, from Copenhagen, from Belgium, and some bureaus from the Netherlands, with the idea that they would all come to Groningen, that we had sessions here in Groningen, field visits, all those kinds of things, and then they would work here in Groningen on their design. But then Corona messed up everything, so we had to do everything online. So people from Groningen, they made pictures, they made videos, they sent them to Paris, to Copenhagen, and thanks to Google Maps, you could do a lot of work. But it's actually the first time you're here, so very welcome to see you here. You work as a leading architect for the design agency Agence Ster. And I would like to introduce that name, Agence Ster, because I really like it, because it's connecting to the soil, which is terre in French, and also to the earth, la terre in French. So actually, you work very much with the soil and with a sustainable earth. But I also understood that terre also refers to the three founders of the company, because tree is also terre in Latin. We have asked Agence Ster to work on the southern axis of Groningen, including the Hondsrug, the Herenweg, and also the city center of the city, the center of Haren, the village center of Haren. In your project, you have taught us, the municipality, the importance of creating a vivid and biodiverse soil. And you have learned us how to create new urban landscapes regenerated by trees. So that was very inspiring for us, that you can actually build cities with trees. Tommaso, I would like to give you the floor.
Well, thank you, Tamara, for the presentation, and I'm very glad to be here. As Tamara said, we were asked to study the Herenweg, so the southern axe entrance to Groningen. And today I will try to focus on the urban questions that we met about urban environment. Anyway, I would like to give a broader analysis because, well, this is the approach that we usually have to look at the territory in general, but also because of the fact that we couldn't come here, unfortunately, to visit the places, we had to deal with technology, with Google Maps, and see places through a distance. And we focused in particular to two main axes of analysis, history and geology, to understand the reasons why there's this kind of ridge on which Groningen is placed at the end, and which is kind of elevated in relationship with the surrounding area, and how it was perceived, this space, through history. That was quite kind of important because talking about climate adaptation, we talk a lot about flooding, and of course the Netherlands and floodings, water is a big issue. But in this space, it's more about droughts, because it's kind of an elevated space in relationship to the surrounding landscape. So the main result of the research for us was finding out the relevance of trees and forests on the Herenweg and on the Hondsrug in general. That was kind of surprising for us from Paris, because our image of the Netherlands, maybe naive, was that of the polders of a land much related to canals and agriculture. So discovering that there was a history of forests in different parts of the country, but especially on this hill that has a geological origin, was extremely interesting. And the relationship that it installed with settlements and villages, as we can see from this picture. Trees are, of course, a tool that it's important to address climate change. And we wanted to diversify the ways in which implement trees in our landscape, and rural and urban. So on one side, from the left, the idea of creating green infrastructures around main routes, or in the middle, the idea of creating, finding again what once existed, a relationship between agriculture and green tree alignments and stripes. And in the third place, the idea of bringing again nature inside city centers. So concretely, in the idea of having green infrastructure, consists in developing green alignments that are more dense than the existing ones, and finding a relationship with broader space given to vegetation. The idea of implementing forests with agriculture is related to, well, I would like to take a step back and say that we were asked to work on a vision for 2120, so in 100 years. At the same time, the vision has to deal with something that has to be done immediately. So some of these ideas, as for example, the first one, that one of green infrastructure, is something that can be implemented very easily from urban policies of a municipality. While the idea of working with agriculture, that then I will talk about again, is something that is more about policies that question the intensive use of soils and agriculture. So that's something more about a long period. And in the third place, we can see the idea of bringing biodiversity in city centers. So bringing nature in the urban dense areas. As Agence Terre, we often talk about living soil. That is the idea of that vegetation, even in urban areas, is not only about bringing trees. Sometimes we deal with existing infrastructures and underground infrastructures that impose some choices. But it's important to know that living soils is about rediscovering a balance between the ground and the sky, and all the different layers that compose this cross-section. So from what happens in the soil, how retention, absorption of water affects roots and affects nature, and how the different levels of vegetation, so from the grass to shrubs to trees of different sizes, can actually create a real ecosystem. It is what happens in nature, so it's nothing new in itself, but it's very important for us to recognize this as the way to approach nature in cities, in urban contexts, in the future, in the 21st century. So if we contextualize the propositions, the idea of the green reach corresponds to the Herweg, so the main axe, which especially in its closer part to the city center of Groningen, it's very mineral, and where mobility is a crucial point. And I think some things that Ido said before is very interesting about the conflicts that mobility can cause in city centers. The idea of implementing forestry stripes related to agriculture, actually we proposed it all over the territory around, in between Groningen and Haren, but here the focus was mostly on the future project of recovering part of the freeway on the southern part of Groningen, and the biodiversity node we proposed is on the main square of Haren. So in the city center. We were looking, of course, for inspiration about biodiversity nodes, and as I said, we couldn't come to Groningen, so we worked through images and references, and we find very inspiring the fact that in the forest, still existing forests around Haren, there's this kind of landscape which brings together stones, which are heritage from the geological past, but also from the historical past and the human presence, first human settlements in the area. The sandy soils and the trees, which create a peculiar environment altogether. When we look at how Swiss Pine today, so the main square in the center of Haren, we see how it is a very mineral space. We know that it has not been like that forever. Once it was a space with presence of vegetation, but in the 60s and 70s, the role given to functionality of spaces in open spaces brought often to the development of this kind of open spaces, very mineral, were very good for hosting events, markets, or manifestations, but where today we face many challenges. How to infiltrate waters, how in the periods, the most hot periods of the year, during droughts, how it is difficult to walk through these places. And that is something that is happening also in the Netherlands, so also in Groningen. We see that there has been an intention to bring vegetation on the square. That is exactly, well, that is of course a first step, but that is not what we meant when I talked about living soils. It's not about just considering trees as elements that you can easily put in an environment as as furniture to create an impact on climate, but it's about finding again the relationship with soils. So our proposition for the square is called crown canopy, and it consists of a ring around the square. The pictures that we will see later on in the other slides that show the project are taken from the models that is part of the sponsored exhibition, as I said before, that is now exposed in Groningen. So the idea of a ring that lives in the middle, an open space, and which has a certain width that allows to have the impression to recreate a forested environment. Why did we want to leave an open space in the middle anyway? Because functional reasons that brought to the mineralization of the square still exist, and the importance of hosting a market, for example, or events is still very important. Uses in city centers are extremely relevant and diversified. So as the main square, it is important to have the possibility to answer to certain constraints that everyday life brings up. However, we didn't want to consider trees just as a tree in a mineral space, because, as I said before, it's important to think about what is around the roots of the tree. When you put a tree in a planter, or it's surrounded from mineral stones or mineral soil, it's not the same thing as creating an environment where you can have actual ground and soil coming up. So that's the first reason. Secondly, of course, the benefits that having a certain width vegetated stripe around the square can bring in rainwater management. We talk about mise-en-scène, putting on stage water. It's something that is very common among, nowadays about actions on public space. In our opinion, the importance of stocking water in green spaces and allowing infiltration in the ground is very important to have an impact also on the global management of water for the region of Groningen. It was very interesting to work in this project with other teams that were working on other areas, because we realized how we didn't focus very much on the underground waters, as we said that we are on a ridge. But that was extremely important to consider as for a regeneration of peatland and as for drinkable water for the town. So with the other teams, we talked about this idea of infiltration in the ground and allowing water to stay in the ground. And last but not least, the idea of creating a stripe that relates to facades. Of course, it's not about only public space, it's also about buildings, and we know that there's a lot to do about the comfort, climate comfort of buildings in city centers, and approaching trees, not too much, of course, because some rules, but to facades has an impact, a positive impact in summer on the livability of buildings. So what nowadays is a space, of course, the picture was taken on a gray day, so it's not at its best, the square, so it's also, we have to understand that, but still, we can see that the human scale is not really taken into account in these positions of the square of today. The ground force of buildings doesn't create any relationship, strong relationship with the outside. And also, it seems like a space you want to pass through, but not install, not to stay there. So our proposition consisted in creating different sequences, different kind of environments, something more related to the facades and the ground floors of buildings. Bringing this concept, because in the end it's not a forest, of course, we called it biodiversity node because, of course, the importance of biodiversity with what it consists in general, it's important, and the idea of experiencing it, it's very important. So we had to give a certain width to vegetation, and then the space in the middle of the square, as I mentioned before, which is free for different activities. The idea of passing through was also kind of important in order to experience this vegetation, and it's also something about pace. Slowing down, even in city centers, well, Harend is not a metropolis, but still in city centers and in the main squares, giving the impression to change pace. And as to conclude, I want to zoom back again, because as I said at the beginning, I focused on this presentation on a small part of the study that we conducted, the research that we conducted, which is, of course, a small intervention that in itself cannot do much at a broader level, but a lot of small interventions can do a lot at a broader level. And also the importance, as I said, of re-questioning the role of intensive agriculture. Because in a territory where urban settlements are in dialogue with productive spaces of agriculture, it's important to understand that those, what we tend to consider anyway, green spaces are not always part of the climate, I mean, sometimes create some issues on climatic levels too. So that's important to consider for a vision in 100 years, a system that considers agriculture and forestry together.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I think 3 nice examples how to, and to say it in your words, unzip the pavement, Floris. And also the complexity deals with, especially in this urban dense setting. Now, finally, I can give the floor to the audience. And I have to stand up for this, because there's this thing which has a microphone in it, and it even has a word, but I don't remember the word of this thing anymore, but I can throw it around and then you can catch it and you can ask a question. And then you can ask it to Floris, to Ido, to Alexander, or to Tommaso, or more in general. So, who can I throw this microphone to? And I also have an online question, so I can already start with that one, so you can think about it, but not yet? Well, oh, wait a minute. I throw it to you, okay? Okay.
Hello, test.
Test.
How does it work? Here. No, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Yes,
not from
here.
the technique.
I
No, it does.
really have to stick my face into it. Question for maybe Ido first, but then the whole table. This idea that it's inevitable to have conflicts in the city in the transformation ahead. I'm curious, let's say, in your experience, what would be the top 3 of conflicts to have, or which conflicts you saw coming while working on the project? Of course, this was still in a safe environment. You can solve all your own conflicts. But if you just would imagine you would get the commission tomorrow, what would be the most important battles? Or name one, maybe everyone
Name one?
on the table should name one.
Ido, can we start with you? Did you hear the question that was
Yeah,
asked?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe it was Peter, but I'm not sure.
Yes, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess, let's say today the most ferocious one in most of the projects, it's about mobility. Because mobility, in order to be fluid, needs space. That's for sure. No one likes traffic jams. People with bikes likes to be able to park the bike on the street next to the place where you go, next to the bakery. So I think maybe the most difficult one today is the one of mobility. It's against cars, let's say mainly today, or let's say the battle is between giving space to car or for other users. But I guess that this battle is today already shifting, especially in Groningen, that is very visionary, as we understood on the role of cars and the limit of that in the city square, city center. But I guess that other ones now today are also about bikes and mobility and spaces for mobility and how to deal with this gigantic quantities of bikes that you have in city centers and also in city centers that have universities, because most of the times it's a lot of students moving by bikes, and let's say trying to shift the place that this takes in the city center in order to liberate space for other things, and especially for infiltration, is a major conflict. Also because let's say a biker is not feeling that he's in fault. He's green friendly. He's not, let's say, consuming energy, not producing any pollution. So I guess he's also less flexible in adapting the way that he uses the city space. But I think that we will have to deal also with these questions of bikes and spaces for bikes, because bike normally uses flat gray spaces in order to surfaces in order to move. So yeah, for me the main battle today is about mobility, but it's shifting actually between cars and other more soft and active modes today.
Okay, thank you, Ido. Do you have anything to add to that, Alexander?
Yeah, I think like a lot of sections are drawn with nice soil and one pipe, but in fact, I think nowadays with energy transition, we have a lot of cables and not that much soil. So I think there's also a battle to fight with this topic. And also I think yeah, we are as designers, so you think in a certain way, you have the maintenance part. It's also within organizations to think through, like cooperating on this and have a coherent view. I think that's also maybe a battle, maybe, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to add, I think I really was thinking about underground infrastructures and networks, because it's true that in many projects we have great intentions, and then we face always problems relating to money, to moving something that has already been placed there, and how these underground infrastructures actually has an impact, and you have to deal with it. So in the end, mobility on one side, cables underneath, and in space it's kind of hard to apply what we look for. So that's, I think it's, well, there's the economic part, but it's a collective need to put at first place climatic reasons, and so if you need to make choices to prioritize certain things to others.
Have you seen any solutions worldwide on dealing with the underground space or mobility and climate adaptation?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think actually the top three would be space, budget, and governance. So space, infrastructure underground, indeed, also above ground, of course. Well, we've seen some solutions already, like using parking space, underground parking space for floodings. It's actually already implemented in Rotterdam, for example. So it's actually out there. I think that's very inspiring. So there are quite a lot of solutions, but it's very difficult to implement them. And indeed, so space. So the other one is, of course, budget. Because still the municipality has to have the budget to implement it, but also to maintain it. green infrastructure, if you don't maintain it, it doesn't make sense, basically, because you will have green infrastructure if you don't maintain it. So that's a very important part, and the governance, of course, having the capacity, having the budget to keep it. And I really like some elements as well that we involve the public, because we don't do that a lot as designers or civil engineers. We tend to give our ideas to a certain area, and I like the parts that we consult actually the people that live there, that has a saying in how to implement it. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Maybe focusing on that maintaining, because that was also a question online. It's for you, Tommaso. The question is, do you also give advice on how the municipality should maintain the green areas you create? And for instance, how do we, as a municipality, can maintain the green areas and also to create this vivid, biodiverse soil?
Well, I think that's a very good point, interesting point, because the answer, I think, it's not. I mean, municipalities have to maintain green spaces in cities, but if it has a cost, so it's not possible to think that we want to implement green spaces and then the municipality has to pay the same amount of money for every kind of green space it produces. So it's very important for me to recognize spaces that need peculiar maintenance. So for example, the main square where you really want vegetation to have a particular aspect. And on the other side, the idea is to bring in cities systems that work by themselves, as in nature. There might always be something to do with it, but if you plant species that are kind of rustic, so they don't need maintenance in themselves, the idea is to create as Agence Terre, often in projects propose to create these enclosed spaces that sometimes are even fenced, where actually what happens inside doesn't require much of intervention from the municipality. The reason is that, of course, you have to bring biodiversity in the city, in urban areas, but you cannot always treat it as a nice flower bed where you need to have good flowers. Or, I mean, nature is not only about that. Nature is something also very spontaneous, and maybe that's a word, bringing spontaneity to natural spaces in urban areas.
Okay, thank you. Are there more questions from the audience? Then you can throw the ball, Peter, to someone else. Yeah, very good.
Hi, does it work? Yeah. Hi, my name is Hedwig. I'm working on a few of these projects, like Damsplein. And it's also very much about behavior. I think you talk about slowing down the city, and we have these shops who bring groceries in 10 minutes and who take a lot of space. Their bikes are all over the place. So we as humans are very much speedy, like we want it quick and fast. And all these elements are bringing back this space, making it smaller, like public transport. The idea of Ido is to make it smaller, so people have to wait longer, because buses can't, have to wait. And when we have these conversations with the public transport, they say, well, every minute we lose, it costs us money. When I have conversations with the municipality about parking places, we want to green, it costs money. When I have, like Damsplein, we want to try to store water in the garage, well, it costs 2 parking spaces. So every aspect in the public space is already taken or given away, and we must take it back, and those are really difficult discussions, I think. So it's also about awareness, about behavior, about not always wanting more, wanting it quicker, but wanting it better. I don't know if you recognize it. I think you do, because I spoke with a few of you. How can we make this, how can we get slower instead of always wanting more and bigger and quicker?
How can we slow down the people, actually? Is that a question for you, Ido?
I'm not sure, but I can try to reflect on that. Yeah, I guess another, and it answers a little bit Peter's first question. I guess another conflict is the conflict related to what we call in planning a program. Because today, when you do a project, whether it's a building or a public space or something like that, there's always a program, and the program is always not necessarily oversized, but trying to anticipate the comfort of use of all possibilities and trying to optimize some kind of situation. And I guess there is a new way in which we need to think about how to program public space, how to program buildings in a way that in which comfort or fluidity is not the most determinant element of doing that. So of course, to use underground parkings for storage of water, to make bus go slower, etc., and to maintain green infrastructures, it will cost more money. There will also maybe be new jobs created and a new way of dealing with that, and that's a progressive change. And maybe it cannot happen in a day, but there is a kind of urgency that it happens. Because I guess that it's a kind of shared responsibility we have. And maybe one of the keys to that is actually to give, to be able as designers, but also as people working in the municipality, giving some kind of vision which can be shared by people. So we believe that this is also what we try to suggest by aesthetics, but also by transformation of usage and all that, that it's really important that it's a kind of new horizon for transformation in which people can really engage and they can really want it and reclaim it of the elder man.
Okay, thanks. Anyone who would like to respond to this?
Well, maybe make a slowing down sometimes, especially in the process. If you go to people, most of the people were engaged with climate adaptation. But first I have to understand what's it all about to accept some things that we cannot do anymore. Maybe, being late, having late dinners or anything as you describe it. So I think that the raising of awareness should be first, that people understand all the benefits as well, what they are given with those systems, and then also have to deliver some other things that their life won't be as optional. And I think understanding for green infrastructure, of course, it's relatively new, especially for inhabitants. For us, it's something that we have in our daily work. For the case of Groningen, we have, for example, a field lab in climate adaptation. You can visit swales, you can visit permeable pavement, how it looks. You can even see how it works. As Tamara described as well, we flood some control floodings of some streets to see what happens when there's a severe stormwater event. And I think that really taps into an understanding. In most of the projects, we have to give time for people to relate to what we are going to implement before they have the understanding, and also therefore understand the benefits, and will be able to slow down their dinners and as you described it. So maybe that helps. Yeah. And actually there's if you want to go to the field lab in Let's Grow, there are some round trips that you can participate, and we will show how green infrastructure works in Groningen. Might help. Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Maybe in addition, that maybe now in economics is the degrowth movement, right? So you have the kind of different perception about what is really valuable. So maybe the COVID period was the time that people experienced in their daily routine, like walking around, or just to slow down, and that we, as designers, try to emphasize the valuable, like a small space, what spaces can contribute to the daily life, and to take this experience maybe more, or to bring it forward a little bit more. Maybe this could help. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I am looking at our clock, and it's 12:29, so I have 1 minute to finalize this seminar, unless there is a very urgent question. No? Okay, then we are time-wise, we're doing very well. I would love to thank Floris, Ido, Alexander, and Tommaso for being here, for joining this seminar. I would like to also to thank you for joining this seminar and the people online as well. If you are interested to see and hear more about climate adaptation in the city of Groningen, please have a look at the Grote Markt. I already mentioned it before. There is this greenhouse with not only the models of Tommaso and of Ido, but also 6 other architects that worked on climate adaptive solutions in the entire area from the Zuidlaardermeer until Schiermonnikoog. So very interesting. Tomorrow we will launch our book, also called Sponsland. This book presentation will be at 5 o'clock in the Central Hall, downstairs in the forum, and I believe that there also will be like a lottery where one of you will win a book, so be there. And maybe last but not least, tonight there will be the premiere of the real physical premiere, because it's already online. There already was a premiere, but a physical premiere of the movie Groene Golven, which also will show you, Flores, and me as well, about climate adaptation in Groningen and how to deal with it. So also very interesting to see. So please join the Let's Grow event this entire weekend, and thank you for joining us.